Hello everybody, my name is James Davies and welcome to Photo Chat Vlog on YouTube. Since it's the start of the year, I thought I would reflect on my most popular pictures from 2017, and it raised an important question, which is, what does being a photographer mean for me? Well, reflecting on that question, I have to say being a photographer means that I am an internet photographer. By that, I mean I don't think I've ever exhibited my photography as prints in an exhibition. Which is an odd thing really, because I am a painter and I'm an artist, and I've not shied away at all from having exhibitions in a gallery of other types of work, including painting and sculpture, and in 2017, ceramics. So although I've never exhibited any photography, and although I take my pictures on film, the internet is how I publish and distribute my photographs, and the primary channel for distributing my photographs has been Flickr. In terms of some basic stats, I uploaded 406 images to Flickr in 2017, and they are passing by you on the screen as we speak now. Now, I use the statistics that Flickr supply, such as the number of people that have viewed something and the number of people that have given a favourite, as a measure of the popularity of my work, and I have no problem in admitting that it is the fact that people are interacting with this stuff and showing that they are viewing and looking at it which spurs me on to keep taking photographs and to keep sharing them online. But the interesting thing, I think, is that it's total strangers that are looking at my pictures. A lot of them are taken in the company of friends and my family, and if they see the pictures they seem to like them, but equally they don't seem to ask for them. There's a classic thing about going on trips with friends where everyone's taking pictures and you get to that "we've got to set up a Dropbox" moment. And somehow you've got to set up some way of sharing all those pictures after the trip, and we never do. So it's not that it's not my friends or family that spur me on to being a photographer, because I think my friends and family would be disappointed if I turned up on a trip, or even just a day out, without a camera. But they're not desperate to see my pictures, which is a funny thing. In fact, I've been on some monumental, life-changing trips with my friends, but I don't remember them through their photographs because we don't swap them. So I think it's the fact that I choose to interact with the world, and I choose to put a selection of my images out there publicly via Flickr, that's really very important in defining how and why I take photographs. Now, it's a bit odd to rely on a website to do the sharing for me, but that's definitely the original intention of the original Flickr, which was one of the reasons I signed up for it. Now, after a while it was bought by Yahoo, and now it's part of a thing called Oath, but if Flickr disappeared I don't know what I would do in terms of photography, even to the point where I might give up how I currently do photography, because other online photographic communities do not really provide me with the same experience. I do have an Instagram account, and I might make a video about that one later on, but the pictures I'm going to talk about today are from Flickr. Now, although I'm choosing these as the best pictures of 2017 according to Flickr, I don't actually think any of them were taken in 2017. This is because there's a big delay between me taking the photographs on film and developing them and getting the time to get them online. So, for example, as I'm recording this, the pictures that I'm currently posting to Flickr are from a trip to Iceland, which was in February 2017. Which is 11 months ago. This is largely because photography is a hobby for me, and I have to do other things with my life. So when I take a roll of film, it doesn't always immediately get developed. But even if it did immediately get developed, I don't put all the images on straight away onto the internet anyway. I spend time curating the images, both in terms of which ones I want to show, and also which parts of the image I want to show. I also have to edit them using software, and that takes time. I've also found over the years that it's worth slowly releasing pictures this way. Having gone to the trouble of taking the pictures and curating them in this way, I want to try and get as many people to see them as possible. And it was about 6 or 7 years ago that I realised if I put out more than 3 per day, on any given day, I started to see a fall off. 3 might get looked at, but the 4th wouldn't get so many views. And if I publish 6 or 7, people really just seem to be skimming through them. So I feel that 3 is the optimal number, and again that slows things down. For example, if I go on a trip and I take 3 rolls of film, and sorting through them for 3 pictures a day can take a long time. So that's why these best images of 2017 were actually taken in 2016. And yes, there are 3 of them. So let's talk about the most popular pictures now, and this first one I've decided to call Restaurant. Now, this is by far my most popular picture of 2017 on Flickr, and the reason is it was in what's called Explore. Now, the Flickr website has a feature called Explore, and I guess it's a curated version of everything that's on Flickr. And basically, if your picture gets chosen by Flickr to be in Explore, then the statistics related to the pictures will shoot up dramatically. Now, as I just discussed, there's often a gap between me taking the image, getting the film developed and scanned, and then uploading it. And in that regard, to demonstrate that, I took this image on the 23rd of December 2016, and it was developed on June the 4th, 2017, and it was uploaded on July the 29th, 2017. I was using an Olympus OM10 SLR and Ilford XP2 film, which is a black and white film that you develop in colour chemistry. It's called chromogenic. It's had 5,934 views and 53 favourites. And that is definitely to do with being in Explore, because people who found it that way are not necessarily followers of me. It's just that when your picture gets in Explore, you do get more followers and you do get so much more coverage. I've no idea how Explore works or what criteria got my picture into Explore. But I will tell you by looking at this picture, beyond the obvious things that it was taken on black and white film, that it's a restaurant in Grandview in Columbus, Ohio, and I took it at Christmas 2016 when I was visiting relatives in the United States, I knew that this picture was going to work out okay when I took it, because it did have the following elements. Now, these are not a surefire recipe for a winning photograph, but it's got some things that I like in a photograph. This is a building, and the building is compositionally occupying a thing called the rule of thirds, which I think is something to do with breaking the image up into 3 equal horizontal bands. Now, I don't consciously always do that kind of thing while I'm taking the picture, but I do sometimes attempt to make use of it when I'm editing the picture. Now, the image also has got a lot of horizontal lines. There's the top of the building, an awning, and there are various bits of pavement or things to do with pavement in the road, like curbs and lines and so forth. The image is also nicely symmetrical, although it took me ages to actually figure that one out in the photo editing software. It also has a prominent piece of text, which is the name of the restaurant, the avenue. It has some people in it, and it's in black and white. So I'd have to say that all of those features have contributed to its attractiveness to viewers, and it may well have been what contributed to the person in Flickr who chose it to be an Explore, or the algorithm, or however that works. And although I consciously took it with those things in mind, and I consciously edited the image afterwards to include those, I didn't take it with the intention of it getting in Explore. I took it because I wanted to take the picture. So it's not a given for me that I'll take a picture of an interesting building with a big word on it, but I would say that that's probably more of a style or a trend for me than street photography, defining street photography as being images of people going about their business. So the people that you can see under that umbrella aren't the primary reason for taking this picture. In fact, if I could have just taken it without them, I probably would have preferred it. But equally, I don't mind them being in there. It is just what was happening at that moment on the day. Now, if you like this photograph, check out Season 1, Episode 6 of Photo Chat Vlog, because that is dedicated to Grandview, Ohio, and it explains the camera and the film and all the details about that one photographic expedition when I took that particular shot. So the next most popular picture, as far as I can tell from 2017, is this one of Whitehaven in Cumbria in the UK, which is a really dark picture. This one got a lot of views, but it wasn't in anything like Explore, and at the time when I took it, I definitely didn't think it would be as popular as it's turned out to be. Now, I do remember at the time that it was definitely an experimental picture, in that the film that I was using, which was Ilford Pan F+, is a very slow film, at 50 ASA. It's very fine-grained, but it needs a lot of light, and it's very contrasty. My brother bought this film by accident in the 80s, when film was of course the only way to take photographs, and I remember him buying it and doing a photo session for his band, and it came out looking really weird. It looked really different to other black and white films and he had taken, and he had really liked it. His band were what we would call gothic, and it was very high contrast. Now, I didn't try any Pan F for a long time, and when I did, I was hand developing film and scanning it myself, and I was really shocked that it didn't seem to have the sharpness that I expected to see in this film. It was also really quite grainy. Now, I think I've actually only shot it in recent times in a compact camera, so it's possible that it's just not a film meant for compact cameras, so perhaps I should try shooting it in an SLR. But I will be perfectly honest that I've not had happy results with Pan F+, and it is not a film that I feel like seeking out and buying particularly. I'm really glad it exists and it's still made, but it's what we might call an acquired taste. And there's another significant thing about this image. I used a very well-known, although I'm not going to name them, a very well-known image processing service for black and white film to develop and scan this roll, because I'm currently not developing my own films due to my domestic circumstances. So I sent the film off to be developed by these people, since my normal lab is just a colour lab, and, well, the people that develop this ought to know exactly what to do with this film. And so it should be fair to say that the results that we can see here are the best results you could get from the developing perspective. But the main problem is they scan it at really low resolution for the internet. They scan at much lower resolution size, for example, than the colour ones that I get back from my regular colour lab. And for me, that's a problem, because there's not enough pixels if you want to do any kind of cropping, since you end up with these quite small pictures in the first place. And I'm fairly certain I can see some digital noise and irregularities in this picture that I don't really like. So one day when I get my life sorted out, I can see if my scanner still works and then try scanning it in myself, and I'll see how it looks that way. Anyway, the technical circumstances behind this picture is that it's this Ilford Pan F Plus film in my Olympus Acura Zoom 80 compact camera, which is a camera that I primarily take on trips with me. I started using it after my Mew 2 got a light leak, and it had the advantage of taking AA batteries. So this was taken on a trip to Whitehaven in Cumbria in the UK on the 18th of July 2016. It was developed on November the 23rd 2016, and it was uploaded to Flickr on May the 19th 2017. It's had 2,185 views and 23 favourites. I don't know how it got to be that favourited. It's not easy to find this sort of thing in the stats. So I don't know if it's the subject matter or if it's that it's in a popular group, because I know that some of the pictures that are on my Flickr that have had a lot of views are only because they're in a popular group. To me, this is not a particularly amazing picture, but if it's in a popular group, then just by people visiting that group and skimming past it, it can register as a view on Flickr. Anyway, we were in Cumbria because my mates and I had climbed a mountain in the UK called Scafell Pike. It's the highest peak in England, and we decided on our day off to go for a drive around the Lake District, and we ended up in Whitehaven for lunch. That day on this picture looks far more black and dark than it actually was. It wasn't a pretty day by any means, but this film turned it into something almost like a Victorian engraving. It's so broody and mean looking, and in that regard I can see how it might appeal to lots of people. But for me, this supposedly fine-grained film looks very grainy to me. I would have thought I'd be able to see every pebble on the beach, and you can't. But that's really what we have. We went to Cumbria, we went to Whitehaven, and we walked along a marina and along the top of a big wall, and that's where this picture was taken. So if you were to actually stand there and look left, then the town of Whitehaven is not that far out of shot on the left. And if you were to turn around to the right, you would see the classic British port vista of fishing boats and buildings and things like that. So I suppose this is a very dramatic looking image, which is why I'm guessing ultimately that it's become popular. There certainly wasn't anything magical about posting it in May 2017 at that time of day, as far as I can tell. I did stick it in a lot of groups, about 89, which is not possible anymore because Flickr has changed the rules in that regard. It's recently had a bump, as it were, because Flickr indicated that it got about 85 hits very recently on one day on the Android version of Flickr. But there's no comments, and there's no hint that anybody has used it by linking out to a blog or anything. But there we have it, Whitehaven in Cumbria. So on to the last image. This has had 2,052 views and 12 favourites. I took it in Rome, in Italy, on the 27th of June 2016. It was developed on 23rd of November 2016 at the same time as the image from Whitehaven in Cumbria was, because I used the same photographic processing service. And I uploaded it to Flickr on the 15th of February 2017. Now the last episode in Series 1, episode 10, was devoted to the Konica C35 camera, and that's what I took this picture with, using Fomapan 400 action film. I was on a trip to Italy, as a family trip to Rome. We decided to hire a personal tour for the morning to get the most out of Rome in the time that we had left, because we'd gone there for a specific purpose which wasn't looking around Rome, but we did have a spare day and we decided to use this personal tour guide. Now we were just walking down the street between one attraction and the next, and he said, "Oh, I know a guy who actually lives on the street. Let me see if we can look round his gardens of his house." So we ended up walking through this guy's personal gardens, and I saw this, and I saw its potential for an image which I suppose might explain why it's been successful. So I opted to take the C35 on that trip because I was travelling light, and I wanted a camera with a good lens that I could take some black and white pictures on. I know I'd also taken a Vivitar Ultra Wide and Slim with old slide film in, which I was going to cross-process, and I didn't really want to get bogged down with too much gear. So I had the one small rangefinder which I could fit in my pocket with black and white film, the Vivitar Ultra Wide and Slim for some far-out colour shots, and then I was more or less using the iPhone, which I now have for my digital photography. So this way I had a way of travelling around on the adventure that kept me relatively unencumbered, and I could make a good use of the personal tour time and not hold up the rest of the group by saying, "Hang on, I've got to take a photo." So you just kind of point and shoot with a little Konica C35. And although it allows you a little bit of control with focusing, the real creativity is just in framing the image. So first of all, you've got the 35mm frame, which is a window onto the scene. And then there's a wall with a hole in it, this oval cutout which leads you through to the vase. Now I know this is not technically the centre of the image, it's not pixel perfect for example, and evidently I decided not to crop it that way either. This is exactly as it came from the camera, there's no tweaking or cropping. And I'm pleased I didn't do any tweaking or cropping because it looks cool and I think it works. There's a very obvious central motif, there is contrast between the lighting on this side of the wall and the lighting on the other side of the wall. You can see you've got this washed out flat interior lighting and the high contrast exterior lighting, and it really captures that inside outside experience that you get in the Mediterranean. And although it's only a vase in a courtyard in Rome, it says a number of interesting things to me. It says that Rome is a historic place full of interesting stuff going on. It also says that I went to Rome, and that's me, not you, and that I was there and that this thing happened whilst I was there. And I also think it says, look at what creative things you can do with a camera. Even a camera that in this instance can only take black and white images because it's got black and white film in it. So, those are the most popular pictures that I shared in 2017 according to Flickr, which, as I explained earlier, is my primary means of doing photography. And I suppose they're united in a number of ways. I mean, if I'm to reflect on them beyond the numbers and beyond the statistics of Flickr, there are some obvious things about all of them. Firstly, they're black and white. Now, I'd never have said I shoot a lot in black and white, but clearly these are popular. More popular than the colour pictures that I take or share. Secondly, they are taken on different black and white films with different cameras. There's XP2, the chromogenic colour film, which means it's a colour film that only shows black and white, shot in an SLR. Ilford Pan F, which is the grainy high contrast film that I didn't really like, in a compact camera. And Fomapan 400, which I just happened to buy because it was a curiosity in a shop in Christchurch, New Zealand, and I'm shooting that in a rangefinder. So there's a variety there which doesn't point to there being an all-round winning camera and a film composition. Thirdly, I also think it's fair to say they are heavy on composition. They're not just taken because I said so. There was some effort to do something with the composition, as opposed to it being like a lifestyle image or an action shot. And finally, what I guess is also notable is that they're not taken at home. None of them have anything to do with my personal life or my everyday life. And so there's something about their location that evidently appeals to a wider group of people than some of the pictures of my home locations. But equally, in terms of popularity, I could have just lucked out with the timing. I could have lucked out with the groups in Flickr that I put them in. I don't have the time, either in minutes or emotionally, to devote to analysing those factors, and it is just a hobby. So I don't want to run my life doing things this way. Photography is one of many things that I do, and I don't always want to be going somewhere and thinking, well, that's going to look good on Flickr, that's why I'll take that photograph. But it is interesting to reflect on what people find interesting about my photography, and it has been encouraging to look back through these images. I don't really set goals in my life, but I do like to try new things, and it's taken me a long time to start using real black and white silver-based film, rather than the chromogenic dye-based films. In fact, there are some black and white images in my Flickr stream that are desaturated colour images, and some people might argue that for an internet photographer, where everything is just pixels, that's a valid way of making an image. But there is no doubt that different films work in different ways, and starting with a pure black and white image is totally different to desaturating a colour image. So I'm glad that these experiments with different black and white films haven't gone unnoticed. Now, something else that I did in 2017 was to start using Instagram for sharing your film images. I plan to make a video looking at the most popular images from 2017 that I put on Instagram. So if you like this one, keep an eye out for that one. Otherwise, if you like what you see, feel free to hit the like button or subscribe to the channel. If you have a comment, please go ahead and write one. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next episode of Photo Chat Vlog.